welcome to everyone who is here. Um, Once again, we have such a wonderful bunch of people who really truly are dedicated to our ministry causes that they're oftentimes, most of the time, here. And so I can say that probably the majority of our crowd tonight are actually working for, associated with Education Unlimited in one way, shape, or form. And so I think we'll skip the introductions tonight and jump right into what we're supposed to be talking about, which is, if I remember, it's dealing with the February blahs. So we'll start that with another story. And that is one where I've been experiencing this forever and ever. Personally, if there's a month that I could just simply throw off the calendar and never miss, February would certainly be my first choice. Well, maybe second choice. March for me is a little more difficult because by then I'm truly, truly tired of winter, completely finished with winter. And March has a way of bringing it back once or twice or three times before it finally leaves. So, March is not my favorite month. February, of course, does bring in the blues. And the reason, I think, is because we have indeed been incarcerated in our homes due to the winter weather conditions. This year, of course, being truly an exception. December was very warm. January was wonderful as well until towards the end of it. And we've only really been cooped up as such with this very, very cold weather for about 2 weeks. Still, I've been involved in education for 45 years. We've been 30 some years doing home education, and February is always the same thing. We call it the tale of two phone calls. We will get a phone call and we pick it up. Hello, this is so-and-so. I'm, not registered with you, but my children are in school. We can't stand it anymore. We've got to leave. Will you accept us? So we go through the processes and probably eventually do. By the time we hang up the phone, the next phone rings and there it is. Hello, I'm so-and-so, and I am registered with you, and we can't take it anymore, and we're sending our children back to school. So there's always a whole pile of students who are leaving school because they can't take it anymore, or leaving home education because they can't take it anymore. But really, in the end, it really has very little to do with the school or the education. It's got everything to do with just trying to fix the blues, get out of this situation. What in the world? There's got to be a way that we can change this thing, and oftentimes that's the way it is. So that's why we determined to put this particular little chat together this evening, is to talk about, what do you do? Well, when you really start to get to the place where you're questioning, stop and ask yourself this: why did I choose to home educate in the first place? And I used to say, write down 3 reasons. And then I wouldn't ask them to read them. Not out loud. I would ask the parents to just simply read them again. And then I would ask them one more question: what has changed? And most of the time, the parents would realize that really not much has changed. The reasoning for bringing the children home was the reasons why they should stay home. And the reasons that they actually lose their wheels and send to school have nothing to do with the reasons why they brought them home in the first place. So the word that kept coming to me today as I was thinking about this visit was a word called resolve. And that is when you simply determine to do this thing, pardon, the expression, but you've heard it before, come hell or high water, or maybe we should say come cold and frozen water, because that's really the reason why we are struggling here. So, we just simply determine we will do this. Now, I know that out of the 3 families that joined us tonight, there's one that has some experience here, and this is not her first year. The first year of anything, first year of business, first year of school, first year of post-secondary, first year of a job or career, first year of marriage are filled with anxieties. And so if once we get past that first year, it is much, much easier to continue to do this. So if you're feeling the blahs, if you're being challenged by the children who are simply saying, I want to go back to school, you're not alone. I know that's probably cold comfort, but you are not alone. Everyone feels the same way, and even the ones that are in school want to bring them home. As a matter of fact, we just got a phone call from a dad today, and he says, "Yeah, the kids have been home all week." He said, "They're never going to wear a mask again." I guess the children were just all sore and everything from having to wear masks in school, and so it was really discouraging to hear that. But at the same time, he this is an example of somebody who's fed up, wants to change the scene. So that was today's phone call. The other thing too is that this whole thing this year has been greatly exacerbated by the whole COVID-19 lockdowns. Right around Christmas time, we were told not to celebrate family, and home education, unschooling, we simply define as just being a family. So in a way, we were prevented from doing the very things that we want to do. And so we all, I guess, or not all, but a lot of people just simply, what do you say, sucked it up and didn't do anything for family. So come January, they were missing family. But more importantly, you need to understand that the children were really, really missing friends and playtime. And so they think that if they can go to school, at least they'll have friends and playtime, which is true. They will have that. But there's a whole lot of other things that they will have that you may not be all that interested in them getting, but that comes with the package. The biggest culprits for wanting to go back to school are 12, 13, 14-year-old girls. They want to go to school so bad, it is not even funny. They just really, really want to go. I'll guarantee you that these young ladies are not thinking in terms of their academics or learning. It's 100% to do with having friends. How do you do that? How do you have friends when we're all locked down in our homes, in our basements, you know? And again, sure, these kids are really, really savvy. They can grab the computer, they can Zoom with their friends. How long do you think we can take that if we had to do this every day? If that was the only way that we actually, fellowship was through Zoom, I think we'd be wanting to go to school or something, just like they do. So it's understood. Now, I'm not sure if you folks know this, but the government did indeed make some changes to the rules, and they relaxed the gathering together of home educating families. So I'm not entirely sure what the rules are. I'm sure there's some, mandates for the number of people, and some mandates for distancing and masking and all that kind of stuff. But still, it was very much relaxed for the home educators. So the only thing that I can suggest to get past that, and again, it's just, a problem that's expounded by another problem, and that is, the COVID issue is to try and find some people of like mind that you can get together with. I know my own grandchildren as an example. To our advantage, they couldn't get together with their own friends anymore. So we had a lot more visits from the grandchildren this year than we've ever had. And we're delighted. We're kind of thankful for COVID in a way, because it's certainly been a lot of fun getting together with the grandchildren. But you have to make the effort. So the very first thing is, number one, you are not alone. You are one of how many Canadians who are just going, oh, please let February go away. And then number two is that it's not uncommon for us to lose our wheels when we start getting blue. And so, children want to go to school, and I'll address that in a moment. And parents sometimes just simply say, I need a change too. See you later, but then the third one is, it's not a good idea to do that. You have to resolve to stick with the plan, to move halfway, whether it's from school to home education or from home education to school. There's not a whole lot that is accomplished by that. There's, other than, of course, the whole friend thing, and that's something that you really truly need to actually do something about. Let me just share a little bit about these 12, 13. We home educated all of ours, and 2 out of the 3 asked to go to school. Now, needless to say, if as long as you have 2 children, you've got 2 different people. The best way to not get a debate is just be by yourself. Well, even then, I suppose some people do. I do debate with myself, but anyhow, the thing we need to understand is that the children have different characters. And what we forget is that the reason why they're starting to squeak that they want to go to school and so on is, in a way, they're starting to declare their independence as they transition from young children or from children to young adults. We forget that these are children whose brains are starting to develop, and that they're starting to get to that place where they can indeed be reasoned with. So out of the 2 out of the 3 that I had at home wanted to go back to school. The oldest one, I reasoned with her and eventually agreed that maybe that wasn't in her best interest. The youngest one was unreasonable. And so since he was not really at that place where he can make a good decision, well, you might say, you mean your decision? Okay, we'll accept that. It's still a good decision. We're not going to be making decisions that harm the children. It's in their best interest. But I just simply had to say, that's not going to happen. It's not an option. Give it up. And they did. So we did manage to get through. This usually happens around, grade 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, especially once they get to high school, because now they've got that little hammer that they can use with their parent. They go, if I don't go to school, I will not get my credits, and I will never get a diploma, and I will never be able to go and get a career, and I will have to live off of your income in your basement for the rest of my life. And of course, parents will go, which school would you like to go to? Nobody wants that outcome. So we do need to understand that we can reason with the children, and sometimes we just have to use the parent authority card in trumping their decision to go to school. Having said that, there are families that ended up with children in school, and it wasn't a decision that they wanted to make, but stuff happens. Dad loses his job, or mom has to go to work, or there's all kinds of different things that took place where children really were sent to school, and sometimes truly it is the best option. The best option of a bad lot, I must agree, but still the best option. All right. Well, I said I'd speak for 20 minutes, and I did. It's 21. Does anybody else want to add to that? And of course, we're open for questions. So any questions that you may want to give us, you can chat them in, or you can just unmute yourself. Give her.
What you have said, Leo, is all really good, but sometimes it helps just to think of some practical ways that you can change things up. Yes, we do need to resolve to stick to our convictions and our plans. And we do need to go out and associate with others like-minded who can encourage us in our home education journey. But sometimes we just need some practical hints. And sometimes I think just changing up the curriculum is a helpful thing to do. If there is a curriculum that is not working for you, don't let it drag you down, especially during these months, but change it up, put it aside, take out another book and use that instead. Or just take a week off from the normal books that you're using and concentrate on something different. maybe a hands-on thing. I think in today's world, we need to teach our children useful skills so much more than ever. And perhaps you want to take a week or 2 weeks or even a month and just teach basic skills in the kitchen or in the shop, as a way to get a break from the books. The children will still be learning, and they will be learning valuable things. So those are just a couple ideas.
Excellent. Thank you, Sharon. We were going to eventually get there. And of course, we got to get there sooner. Boy, sometimes they say the best rest is a change. And indeed, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about you can start doing puzzles. Okay, tired of those puzzles? Get a 3D one. You know, get the children to help in housework. Let's get some baking done. Be prepared for hockey puck cookies and maybe burnt offerings for supper, but you know they still have to learn. Just get involved in different kind of activity. Sometimes we live we live in a country along a dead end road, and our road has never been as busy as it has been this year. People just coming out here, even in that 40 below weather, coming out here so they could just go for a walk out in the wilderness. Over here, there's nobody who is going to slap you for not wearing a mask, or for these kinds of things. So people are escaping in that way, but you need to escape the humdrum of the situation. Taking a rest is a good idea. Let's everybody just read. There is a reason why post-secondary institutions have what they call reading week, and I think it's always in February, because that's where people lose their wheels. Matter of fact, that's when there's the greatest incident of suicide at the university. So that's how that was instilled. Everybody just goes, changes scenes for a little bit, maybe go home, or just, even if it's nothing more than sleeping in the morning, and just forget the books. You can leave it for the entire month of February. Actually, that would be one way of really making February a much better month. How about if it was curriculum free? We're off for the entire month of February. I wonder how many children would say, oh no, we want to do our math. Of course, there'll be some, but most of them would say, a good plan. So find activity. Faye and I, my wife and I, Faye, when we went for the walk today, we were talking about this and all the different things that could be done. And of course, we're fine thinking of all these plans when we're walking on the road and there's nobody there. But now that we're here, I've forgotten all the things that we talked about. But go and do something different, and a change of scene. If you have to, just change the furniture in a living room or something, but just go and make it different. That is going to go a long ways. Sharon, you have some more to say. Add, please.
Well, sometimes I think some of these blahs can also come because maybe you don't have quite a handle on the children as you should. So maybe if we're going to make a change, make it a change where you are concentrating on developing their character and shaping their obedience towards you so that you can tackle the books again. That may be another idea for families to try.
All right. Isla and Nadia.
Another,
oh. No, go ahead. Sorry, my fault.
Okay. Another thing that I was thinking of was Beth Weens has written a couple of books that I read a number of years ago. Sometimes, especially new to home educating families, will have high expectations in their mind of what home education should look like, but it happens to be a lot like school, and that can be their stumbling block. Beth Weens has written a couple of books One is called Bringing Them Home, and one is called As for Me and My House, and they give the reader an idea of what home education could look like, and that might be a good thing to take up and read together as a family.
Yes, for sure. Unreasonable expectations really need to be reasoned with and made reasonable. Um, and again, what's important is that you have expectations. I know that as a high school teacher, I was approached by other teachers and saying, "What's your secret?" And I always tell them in one word, my secret was actually expectations regarding the children. Regarding the families, the secret is quite simple. They were the boss, I was working for them. But regarding the children, is that I had expectations, and not just expectations, but I had high and reasonable expectations. I expected them to do their best, and they delivered. And the teachers that were expecting them to get 50% so they could get their credit, that's usually what they got. So, the more you expect, you're going to get what you expect. If you have no expectations of the children, then they're going to deliver just that.
I'm I'm a big fan of reading aloud, so I love Sharon's suggestions about finding some good books and reading. I think that takes us on a journey and out of the ordinary. It takes us to places that we've never traveled before, and adventures that we can have together as a family. It's a shared adventure, and we don't even have to leave the couch. So in these colder days and in these longer days, I would suggest not even changing up the curriculum, but throw it out and put it aside and just sit on the couch, read, and read. And what I'm noticing when I've made all my calls to visiting up with our families, and I think it's most especially families that are new to home education, but when I'm at home with one or two kids, I can live a pretty crazy, chaotic life, and I can live in my chaos and I can manage my chaos. But I bring 3, 4 more kids home, and now I've got 6 kids at home, and we're trying to do a little bit of home education. That chaos that I can manage and live in when it's just a small group of people, it just gets magnified. And I think that has been part of the things that I've heard people say is I'm so overwhelmed and I'm so stressed. And I think February, we can hold it all together until January, February, and then it all seems to hit the fan. And so I think that Sharon also said that too, about how do we manage the children. And one thing that somebody had taught me, I do not know where I learned this, but it's very effective. And that is to bring the children into the problem solving. So suggesting, like, say, we've got a problem that nobody wants to pick up after themselves. That's probably a pretty common problem with a lot of kids in a home. Bring the children and have a family meeting and sit around the table and say, hey, we've got this problem. Nobody wants to pick up after themselves. How can we make this work? And it is phenomenal, the ideas and the creative ways that kids come up with to solve that problem. And then it's not mom or dad bringing down the hammer. It's the whole family is in on the decision about how to make it happen. And this happened for us as a family one time. We said, hey, nobody wants to do the dishes after supper. What are we going to do? And I was thinking, ordinary things like, well, we could make a schedule, which I hate. I hate little things, little sticker charts on fridges. It was never how I parented. And I thought, oh, brother, I don't even know if I could do that, let alone my kids. And what are we going to do? And how are we going to do this? And when we had our family meeting, at the bottom of our family meeting, after we discussed various ideas, our idea was, you know what, if we all got up at the end of the meal and everybody contributed to cleaning up the table and cleaning up the kitchen and putting the food away, wow, we could probably be done in like 10, 15 minutes, and then we could all go do what we want to do. And that is to this day, and we have no children living with us, but when our children come home, to this day, we have a meal and everybody gets up and contributes to cleaning up the kitchen. And we've had the most wonderful conversations. We've had the most laughs. And that was our children's idea to come up with doing that. So big, long story to say, bring your kids into the decision-making when life seems crazy and you need some suggestions.
That is a very good piece of advice. Thank you, Ella. Actually, it actually spawned another idea. I really like photography. I take lots and lots and lots of pictures. I always have. And I do know that our February blogs were filled with, once upon a time, they were slideshows. Then, of course, now that they're all digitized and so on, it's the equivalent of it's a modern day slideshow. But we do that. The children were here yesterday. They wanted to see pictures. We've got pictures that date back, a long time. And the children love that. They love to go over when they were babies. What was I like? And so on. It really just, brings the family together, and we can see the history, and there's 1,000 stories because those pictures conjure up memories in the children, and hey, I remember that. And boy, they talk about things I didn't even know it happened, but it was a part of their world, and now they're sharing it with us. So that is another great way to pass the time, because in February, what you want to do is find things to pass the time, because it's only 28 days long, but sometimes it feels like 28 weeks. So yeah.
Okay, my turn.
That is, I was going to say, come on up.
I know you're gonna call on me, so I'm gonna turn on my camera just for now because I hope it will last. So I'm coming to the February problem from the mental health side of view, because I think, as you mentioned, it's the most probable month for people to commit suicide, especially at university level. And a lot of people complain about feeling down. If it's not like depression, then it's still not the most sunny month we usually have, not the month when we feel upbeat and happy. So taking care of that would probably help a lot of other problems. And instead of totally on the opposite from what Isla said, not leaving the couch, my advice is leave the couch. Like, as much as you can, leave the couch, get out the door. You have to catch those 2 hours in the middle of the day when the sun is on, because it's dark, right? It's getting a little bit longer in February than it was in January, but still not that much time to be outside. So you you ate your lunch and you're outdoor and you're trying to catch that a little bit of fresh air, a little bit of sunlight. If you only last 10 minutes, it's good, but you have to get out. You have to get exposed to the elements so that you can enjoy your couch more afterwards. There is nothing more pleasant than a cup of hot cocoa and a big warm wrap around after you got outside and got yourself properly cold, right? So that would be one thing. The other thing is, we live in a climate where we don't have enough sunshine, and having vitamin D is absolutely paramount for having good mood, let's put it this way. So if you don't get out enough, or even if you do, vitamin D supplement is coming handy during the winter months. And I know people who swear by vitamin D as I'm not getting into depression kind of thing. So it's something to think about. Another pretty cool trick is those full spectrum lights that you can buy right now, those you use for your plants. Sit under them as if you're a plant. That makes a huge difference. Just the quality of light and the amount of light you can get, right? Like you can have that light on for longer hours than sunlight permits. So you extend your lighter hours by a lot, like how much you want to handle it. But I know there is even a program right now at some cities where they try to install, I think in Edmonton even, when they install those lights in the libraries. We can't go to libraries right now, but the idea is that you can come to the library, get a book, and sit under the sunlight so that your mood gets better. But you can buy it and have it in your home. And from the perspective of how do we handle curriculum, what do we do? Even in the best time of the year, we don't have this kind of problem, but when it gets dark and cold and nobody wants to do anything, that's the time to play board games and hug on the couch and read books and sit in front of the fire. And you have time to catch up. Like, really, you will. That's the end of my spiel.
All right. Actually, Nadia mentioned that we had a student many, many years ago, and he would just almost go into a comatose state. And the parents were very, very concerned about what is the problem. Indeed, they did go and get, this was in the winter, they went and got one of those full spectrum lights, and they put that, and they sat that guy under there, and they said it just like it gave him a new life. That's what he was truly lacking, I suppose, vitamin D. Not even sure. It's so long ago. It might be pre-supplements, but he did do very, very well once they got those lights out. Matter of fact, they were all taking turns. I think that light was busy 24/7 because when one person left, another person went in, and it made such a difference in that particular family. Okay. Now, of course, we've heard from all these professionals. Mike, do you have anything to offer? What do you do when you've got 11 children and they're all at home in February?
Actually, like I don't have anything particular to offer, but from what the others were talking about, it really made me question like the difference. How would you deal with a large family as opposed to a small one? Like if you have just 2 or 3 children, the issues that you deal with are different than if you have like 8 or 9 children at home at the same time. Because if you have 8 or 9, you've got a much larger age differential between the youngest and the oldest, and so you're dealing with different issues. Whereas if generally speaking, if you've got just 2 or 3, they're probably not that different in age. But it just made me wonder, like I said, I don't have a suggestion, but it does seem to me that there'd be very different family dynamics, a very large family compared to a very small family, and how you would deal with that would differ from one family to another, like because of the size. Because you can't, if you've got just little kids, you might be able to sit them down and have them read, but you've got also, as well as the little kids, you've got bigger kids, they would have different kind of issues to deal with. So I was just left more with questions than with any positive suggestions as to how to deal with that.
Fortunately, we tend to adapt to what we got there. And there's no doubt what Mike is saying is very, very true. There's a whole different dynamic to having 1 child, 2 children, or 3 children, or 8 or 10. That's for sure. The other thing too that we've neglected to mention is that not everybody is privileged as we are to be able to live in the country. It's a whole different setup in the country. We have not been nearly as negatively affected by the COVID pandemic than people who are living in the city. And it's just logical that we are distant already from our neighbors. We're not next door as the folks in the city are. So that's a whole different thing again. I would be willing to guess that everybody who's joined us tonight is probably coming from the city because they're looking for a solution. The one in the country, they just would like to just be able to, get with their friends a little more. And needless to say, I've seen a lot of children turning 16 and within a week they've got a driver's license in the country. I think it's got everything to do with being, wanting to just get away, to be free. So, all right. I'm going to read, I think everyone probably saw that, but Olivia sent a message to us. I want to take the time to read this. Every day getting outside. Of course, not -40. We are developed home. We have developed home fitness, rebounding, stretching, and understanding of nutrition, spring cleaning, sorting of all those things. We can move out of the house, planting our garden and making an inventory of seeds and plan for indoor start. Lots of music, learning, playing, listening. I'm going to throw in photos, pictures. No television except family shows. We do not watch TV. Yeah, you got to be careful because you can get kind of sedentary. When you start growing leaves out of your head, you've been watching too much TV. We start our morning as a family in biblical study, character development. And one thing I recommend for everyone is the study on fear and how it operates. Good one. It is a wonderful child-oriented book, Hind's Feet on Hind's Places by Hannah Hannard. Wonderful journey. Thank you very, very much for sharing that with us, Olivia. That is worthwhile. People can certainly get some, glean some wisdom out of that and some ideas. Now, of course, we need to understand that all of these ideas that we're throwing out, and you saw that as Isla says, you know, lay on the couch, and then Nadia turned around very next the session and said, get off the couch. You know, that only goes to prove that every family is different. All the dynamics are different. And you're going to have to find those things that work well for you. And, you know, and again, we mentioned this before, beware of the expert, because people think that it works for them, therefore it should work for everyone else. You know, photos work very well for me because I love photography. But there are some people out there, you ask them for a family photo, they go, what's that? They, you know, they're just not part of that. So different strokes for different folks, they say. And so each family will have to work out some dynamics. I see we have another contributor that joined us here. So Nicolette, we're basically talking about, you know, solutions to the February blahs or the blasés, if you will. And I know that you may be repeating yourself, but because you weren't here until now, but that's, or not repeating what's already been said. And if that's the case, that means we need to hear it twice. So go ahead and share your insights with us.
Oh, I'm not sure that right off the top of my head I have any insights. Just one thing that that happened actually when I was on my way home with my daughter, driving in the car from her dance class. We were talking about the COVID pandemic and the lockdown and everything. And she said to me that if she didn't have her two stepsisters, whom she sees on the weekends, that she would be in really rough shape right now. And I wasn't really aware, I think, of how much she's actually suffering during this time and how much not being able to be in person with her friends is actually affecting her. And I'm really grateful because one of her friends last week, the parents agreed to be a cohort with my daughter. And hopefully that, we haven't totally ironed out the details yet, but hopefully it's going to mean that my daughter can actually be in person with her in the house and, you know, just kind of being normal like they used to be. But I think that even my daughter's 14, so I think even, you know, teenagers, everybody, I think they may be suffering more than we're aware of. And so that was kind of an eye opener for me because she's so busy all the time. She works and she's got all kinds of activities and she plays flute and she practices and all kinds of stuff that she's doing. But I didn't realize that the fact of not actually being able to see her friends in person has been really that hard on her.
I just watched a video. We get tons of stuff sent to us. Watch this, watch that. I would be full time in front of the tube if I watched them all. But I do catch some of them. And of course, after a while, there tends to be a lot of repetition. But the thing that has been coming through of late that is, and it shouldn't be new, but they're now starting to come up with the incredible damage that this pandemic is inflicting on children. We've got children out there who are going around. I heard this, it just broke my heart. An 8-year-old who was suicidal because her teacher had told her that she was potentially dangerous to her grandfather, that she could kill her grandfather if she went and visited him because she could be carrying this COVID thing. I mean, what a burden to place on a child. The children are just, you know, they don't know, they don't have the experience, the wisdom to be able to make sense out of this nonsense. It just doesn't jive. And of course, especially those children that we just mentioned, Nicolette, that young ladies in particular, 12, 13, 14, unbelievably miss that fellowship. They really need that at that point in time. The other thing, of course, is that home educators spend a lot of time with their kids, but sometimes it might just be an idea to just turn that up, spend time, do things with them, just share in so many ways. And you know, you can share your problems with them too. And then they realize that, yeah, maybe I'm not alone, because it's easy for us to be able to say, well, you know, I'm all grown up, I can deal with this. But I don't think we're any more happy about the paucity of fellowship than the youngsters are. They just feel it more acutely, I think. But boy, we got invited out to dinner a few days ago and we were just so excited we could hardly wait. to go. And at the end of the evening, the people were saying, oh, it's been so wonderful to talk to real people with real faces. And, you know, they were so excited to have had this time to get together. Really, personally, I'm not paying any attention to all the rules, but then I do live in a different world. I do live in a different paradigm, and you know, we are trying as much as possible to just have that fellowship. We were created for that very reason. We were created to have fellowship with God, and if we're created in His image and in His likeness, we cannot do without people. We are social beings. My kitty cat, I just saw one jump up there. My kitty cat, he's happy to be all by himself. He doesn't need friends, but we're not created that way. We do need fellowship. We do need time. So getting outside, that's important. Doing things together, that's important. Forgetting outside and forgetting the book, that's all important too. But I think more than anything else, we should be doing whatever we can to get together with people so that our children can just, you know, so we can minimize the damage that this isolation is creating on them. All right. Well, is anybody else? Yep, I got another one here. Okay, thank you, Olivia. You can see here, folks, that there is a link to get that book, and Resolving Fear and All of Its Companion, excellent for mental and spiritual health. Thank you. I'm going to, can I copy that? Yes, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to send it, even as we speak, to our parent resource manager, and she'll have a look at it, and maybe we can even put this particular resource on our resource page. All right. Okay. I sent it. There you go. So you've contributed, and it may even be a part of the Education Unlimited website. All right. Are there any more contributions or questions? All right. Well, I can't think of another story. I usually have lots of stories to tell, but somebody has to spark something in here so we could tell the story. But there is that would be wonderful. Janessa, okay. So for the children from the school with understanding of fear, she is 10. Whoa, that's good. That is really good. Thank you for sharing. I actually went in and threw your name, and I find out that you are indeed with us and that you are acquainted with Nadia, and so share that. You know, that's there's nothing that's a greater blessing than to share with others. All right. So Mike, can you think of a story I should tell so we can occupy the next 9 minutes?
Actually, my favorite story is not relevant for this.
Oh,
my favorite,
it doesn't matter though, because all we need right now is a laugh.
yeah, well, my favorite story from you is from when there was a student who was having problems with the truancy board, and so the family switched to you. And you went in and talked to the truancy board, and the HSLDA was there and everything. Do you remember that
I
one?
do.
I don't know if you want to tell that one. That was my
Okay,
favorite
well,
one.
it's a story, and so I'll tell it, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, which incidentally is probably cathartic. We do need to do that. So the whole idea is let's do something different. So let's tell you a story that has nothing to do with February Blahs, nothing to do really with most of the things that we've talked about this evening. There's always been some misunderstandings between school and unschooling. There's some steps between that. It's sort of a continuum between school at home, homeschooling, home education, and then unschooling. So what happened is that this young lady was registered with the school board in Edmonton, the Argyle school board, and there was a lot of graft and greed and cheating that was taking place in those days over blended programming. That is, there were tons of parents who were being registered as being blended when they weren't blended, and that way there was a greater remuneration for the children from the government to the school. So I guess there's only one word for that. I guess it's called cheating. So there was lots of that going on. This young lady was registered. The mother was, oh, how should we say, one of those ladies where you really didn't have any trouble understanding where she was coming from, because she was a no hole barred. She'll tell you as it is, using the words that she thought was most appropriate, even if they were inappropriate at the time, to make her point clear. So she was quite shocked, and she was visited by the facilitator from Argyle, and the facilitator was getting down on her for not having done her part of the blended programming. And the mother, of course, hit the roof because she was not, as far as she was concerned, registered in blended programming. Now, under normal circumstances, the thing would have blown over, but this lady was not your ordinary lady, you know, sort of a pistol packing Annie kind of lady. So she goes to the school board, and she started a war. I don't know what the body count was when she was finished, but she really did make her point quite clear. So then the school turned around, and of all the ridiculous thing, they actually charged the mother with, or the child with, truancy. Now, how does that make sense? Truancy, if you don't know what that means, is failing to attend school. We're all obligated to attend school between the ages of 6 and 16. So this child at home, full-time home schooling, if you will, just so we can make the parallels, is now charged with not being in school. So this was ridiculous. As a matter of fact, to show you how ridiculous this could be, and this is an aside, we once upon a time had an audit where a Dr. Green was wondering where our attendance records were. And I was trying to reason with Dr. Green over the fact that the children were likely at home all the time. That was the nature of home education. And it was like trying to reason with a fence post. So finally, in frustration, I told Dr. Green, fine, I will put attendance records in, but don't be surprised if you end up with anywhere from 380 to 425 days a year. And shockingly, he said, good, that'll be fine. So, you know, that's how disconnected it could be sometimes. And in this case, with this young lady, it was truly disconnected. So she went to the truancy trial. And truancy trial, you need to understand, is basically people who volunteer to do this, and they're paid per meeting. That's called per diem. And so the more meetings they can have, the more they get paid. I thought it was a shoe-in. They'd be able to go in there and just simply say, we're home educated, we're home for 400 days out of the year, and then, you know, it would all be thrown out. But to my surprise, it wasn't. And what happened is then they insisted that this child be tested. HSLDA that was fighting the case asked me to do the testing. I don't believe in that stuff anymore, but back then maybe a bit more. So we did the test, and then I figured good enough. I sent a facilitator there to, you know, to represent us more or less, and it just escalated. It got worse and worse and worse until finally I said, enough of this nonsense. I even phoned the chief officer there in the whole truancy business, and he agreed with me that probably it should just be dropped, but it wasn't dropped simply because the people who could perpetuate this were getting paid. So I showed up, and at this time I didn't just show up alone. I called as many people as I knew, all the who's who, the AHIA, HSLDA, and so on. I told them, you better show up here, because if this is one that we lose, this is not going to bode well for home education. So there was quite a packed audience. And then these three people, 2 men and a lady, they started asking questions, and our pistol packing Annie was jumping up and, you know, firing missiles at them, which wasn't doing us any good, but she wasn't going to take any from anybody. And so even as they were talking, she was correcting them. And of course, then what was happening is that we had a fairly new neophyte lawyer working for HSLDA by the name of Paul Farrett, and he was not good at this at all. He was no match for like we'll just nickname her Annie. She just flattened him. And so it came to the point where they were being very officious and asking the people. Finally, they got and asked, has the test that we ordered been completed? And my facilitator answered, we waited, there was time. And then she answers, says, yes. He says, well, may we have the results, please? And the facilitator says, well, I don't have the results. And so then he said, well, who does have the results? She points at me and she says, that man. And then these people ask, and who are you? So I pointed out that I was the one responsible for the child's home education, and that we were the provider and so on. And that was a bit confusing for them because the lady, Pistol Packing Annie, she was smart. She actually is the first time and only time I've been fooled. But she registered for the following year, but backdated it, which effectively made us responsible for her when Argyle was responsible for her. So it was a switch of responsibility. And all of a sudden, I should have checked the date. That was my own fault. I must have been distracted by a kitty or something. But anyway, so I told her we're not responsible. And it says, may we have the results? I said, may I ask you a question first? He said, yes. I said, when did the truancy board officially take on the responsibility of the achievement board? And they were stunned by that. And all of a sudden, they cracked the hammer and he said, we'll take a recess. And that was an interesting recess. I was literally getting in between Annie and the HSL lawyer because she was going to, I was pretty sure she was going to throttle him. As I said, she was quite the lady. One of those you really want on your team, not on the opponent's team, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, so we got this all cleared off, and then when we finally got back, the truancy board, who suddenly realized they were not the achievement board, decided to, end this particular thing, and that they were going to be, and then they asked me to report to them on the attendance, and I went, yeah, okay. So anyways, that's an interesting story that had nothing to do with what we're doing tonight. The moral of the story is sometimes change is only brought about by the fact that there's somebody willing to stand up and take it on. How long would this have gone on, and how ugly would that have gotten if somebody hadn't just stood up and say, really, by what authority are you doing this? Whoever gave you the right to determine whether this child is achieving or not? That was my responsibility, I told them, not yours. And so that's, I don't know how interesting that story is to you, but one of those victories, because to the best of my knowledge, I am not aware of another home educated student having been charged with truancy since that time, even when the government forced the truancy of many, many, many families when the NDP government put an end to wisdom homeschooling for a short time. All those students were technically truant, and yet not a truancy charge was laid, which would, of course, been a lost cause because the government that caused the truancy was then charging the students for the truancy. So that's probably the reason why none were laid. And I'm quite frankly surprised that the government came up with that understanding. Sometimes they they do funny things. All right. Well, are there any more comments or questions? We have spent our hour. All right. Well, you can go all out there and be a pistol packing Annie mums. Go out there and take on the world. Turn it upside down. Move it out of the way. You're coming. You and your children and dad too. That's what we need to do, is just take that bull by the horns and take his horns off, and he's not a bull anymore. So, all right, folks. Thank you so much for attending this evening. God bless you all. And hopefully this has been an encouragement to you this evening. So long and good night.